people. This week we've got questions for Thomas Burgess of Save a Warrior UK.
I am a veteran, I'm a business owner, I'm a charity director, I'm an alcoholic, I am a survivor of suicide and charging forward on a mission to help as many people as I can. I couldn't wait to get into it. I want to go deal with it for Queen Country.
You say death happening around you. It's part of the job. What was the situation where that was the case?
One of the stories I was stuck on was the rocket tank that took out 3 of my friends in one go. But I made it mean something more than it needed to be. It was having parties and drinking to accept it's the British culture. It was a habit that went completely under the radar because in the military it's acceptable. I outgrew the military. I was covering up an attempt on my life in 2015, and I blamed everyone but me. Who am I? Why am I here? This is all your fault. This negative chat just grew louder and louder. And then it went, fuck it. And whilst I was driving my car, I put my foot to the floor and aimed at a roundabout. The more that we can be with this stuff, hopefully, the healthier we are, the fitter we are.
And I've been looking forward to this one.
Okay.
How are you?
Relaxed. Yeah, relaxed. Feeling very positive as well. We had a very busy couple of weeks, Adam and I. And, well, on top of a busy year and a half to 2 years. So, yeah, I can say quite relaxed.
Okay. So before we do jump in, little tradition I've got on this podcast is, instead of giving your introduction, I like to give it over to you. So, in a nutshell, who would you say Thomas Burgess is?
In a nutshell, Thomas Burgess is 39-year-old chap, married to a beautiful woman, living just on the edge of the countryside in Hampshire. I am a veteran, I'm a business owner, I'm a charity director, I'm an alcoholic, I am a survivor of suicide and charging forward on a mission to help as many people as I can.
Okay. So, take me back then. So whereabouts where's home? Where's not home, but where did you grow up?
Where did it start?
Where did it begin?
Wandsworth, near there. So Penworth Road, I think it was number 60, Penworth Road. And my mum and dad are Linda and Dan. I've got a little brother, and we lived in a ground floor flat. If you went and bought this house now, it would be the best part of 700 grand, but I think back then it was probably 23 grand. My mum did her best to, provide a house for us to live in, and they both worked double jobs to make ends meet. Well, that was the age of the times. But yeah, southwest London. That's where it all originated.
Okay, so southwest London. How was school for you?
School is a funny old topic. At that point where I grew up in Penworth Road, Earlsville, school was, I don't really remember much of it as in terms of lessons and stuff. I just remember going. I was very young. Moving further into age, primary school, secondary school was awful. Just didn't fit in. And I didn't see it at the time, didn't understand at the time. I've got a better understanding of these things now, and how my personality was just craving attention. I just wanted to fit in, and essentially played the class clown. Always in trouble, didn't realise why, but I was I just wanted friends, but trying too hard, and ended up getting bullied as a result of it because I was the weird kid.
Okay. Why do you think you wanted friends? Was you like lonely on the outside, or?
I think everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to feel special. Everyone wants to know that they've got a place in the world and not on the extremities of the tribe, if you want to say it. You know, cut it down to anything. So there was just this longing to, fit in, and goofy kid. It was very easy for the bullies to pick things out on me, and because I never stood up for myself, it just snowballed and got bigger and bigger. And then before I know it, there's teams of kids chasing me around school at the age of 11 and 12 years old. So it was a terrifying ordeal for me. I hated going to school, and I did what I could do to escape and evade around school. I knew the groups of people and where they would hang out, so I just made sure that I went like the complete polar end of the school. Made me pretty good for being in the military, really, but I didn't enjoy school. The only lesson I really enjoyed was art. I'm quite creative. I did a lot of drawing, and that was an escape. It was a dissociated behaviour that I used to get out of my head, get into the paper, and just blend pencil work into. I was pretty good at it. Still got some of the portraits I've got, but and I still do a lot of creative work now in my work, but I haven't given up with put pen to paper and drawn anything for a while.
Fair enough. Okay, so you touched on that. You went into the military. So you didn't like school. It wasn't for you. Fair enough. And did you have a group of friends?
I had one good friend. His name was Nick Holt. He lived about 2 miles away from where I lived, back in Worcester Park. So we would get the bus together. We walked to school sometimes, and we just kicked about. So he was a good friend of mine. I speak to him now still. I haven't seen him in a while, but he was probably like my only really good friend. We had a couple of fallings out, but kids do. But apart from that, really, no. And Nick joined the army at 16, which then left this massive void of friendship in my life. I missed him when he left and joined the mob, but he had to do. He was growing up. I knew I was joining the military anyway, but I didn't follow him down the army route. I went for the RAF regiment because I was an air cadet, as I think you were too.
Yeah.
But the air cadets, there was a squadron on the school. It was like shrouded in mystery. This big, grey, horrible-looking cabin with a green fence around the outside, like a boxer's pen, like that, just fenced in. I was like, what's this thing? It had this crest and emblem, 1345 Squadron, Air Cadets. So, at 13, I joined that, put the uniform on, got my little blue ID book, and I was like, right, I'm in. This is it. And and then a RAF Reg gunner in a Parasmog turned up. Don't know his name from Adam. He was only there one time. And he did like a little demonstration, and here's my kit, here's my webbing. I was like, right, that's where I'm going. What qualifications do I need to do that? None. So great, I hate school. And that was it. Disengaged from school, but knew from an early age that I was going to join the mob and make a go of my life in that way.
Okay. So what did you join? Join the RAF?
Yeah, RAF regiment.
Yeah. So how was that process for you, actually joining?
It was a lot of forms. I couldn't wait to get into it. I knew what I was joining. I had no idea what I would do when I was in the military. Iraq had just started with like the second invasion of Operation Telic. That was there. There was a little bit going on in Afghanistan, very early days with that. But one of the main contributing factors to me joining that was 9/11 as well, and that just sort of like solidified it for me. And I was like, right, I want to go and do my bit for Queen and country. But the joining up process took about a year and a half with forms and medicals and fitnesses and fitness tests and stuff. And at 18 and change, I got the train to RAF Honington, suitcase and a bag over the shoulder, and that was it, left home. And I think if I hadn't joined the military, well, I don't know what, I wouldn't like to sort of like say, oh, I would have done this on that. I probably would have just been working in retail for the rest of my life. And 40, 50 years old, like wondering how on earth I got here, and life passed me by. So, hell of an adventure.
Yeah. So, I can imagine. So, when you joined, all this was kicking off. So, where was you first? Yeah, where was your first station? Where was you first sent out to?
So first posting was 1 Squadron, which was based down at RAF St Morgan in Newquay. I chose that station because I thought it would be really fun to go and get posted in Newquay, Park Town, around the beach, surfing and beers and all of that stuff. I really didn't pay much attention to the fact of who's this squadron. Is it going to be a good choice for me career-wise? I was young. I just wanted to go and have a party. I already had that flavour for party ingrained in me. I was like, well, I can go there and I'll have fun. The first deployment overseas was Operation Telic, and that was 2004, I think. Yeah, 2004. 4.5 months. Nothing too crazy. It's just my first deployment. Had no idea what I was doing. There wasn't a very good, well, maybe I didn't pay enough attention in the lessons, but there wasn't a very good coaching culture. It was very much do that. Why? Because I said so. And that was just, that was just the way it was. So I remember blagging a lot of what I was doing on my first tour, because I was young, didn't really know where I was and what I was doing. But there was a lot of things that were brand new to us, so there was a steep learning curve, and a culture of bullying. You could say that. Tom stood out once again, just a repetition of me at school. I wanted to be liked, so I was, class clown once again, and it didn't work at the time. So I had to get toughened up. And if those thrashings and if those, I want to say beatings because there were beatings, but I just got thrashed a lot. But lots of pointless star jumps and press ups and sprints and carrying bottles of water up the tower. If I didn't have that, I probably would have carried on being that guy. So it toughened me up a bit, but it meant I had to fake who I was even more. So my true self, the young Tom that just wants to be creative and get out there and be liked and like other people, turned into Regiment Gunner Tom, and that became my identity. Which leads to problems later on in life when you don't know who you are.
Mm. Okay. So we'll dig in, we'll get there. But first, a question I have is, how was that feeling of first being deployed? How did you feel?
Fear and excitement they're the same thing. the same emotion really. So I've always felt quite excited in every deployment, in every skydive, in every dangerous act. It's a cover-up, There's a lot of fear that goes on, and whether you vocalize it or show it or not, there's a lot of fear. Fear of not coming home, fear of getting injured, fear of not doing the right thing and someone else getting hurt. There's a lot of pressure around responsibility. If you don't do this one thing right, the so on and so forth, and the knock-on effects if someone will die. And that's what was taught. So there's a lot of fear. It's a fear-based culture. Get it right first time or else. So my first deployment, I remember I couldn't pack my burger. I just didn't know what to put in there, and I was like, what do I take? Am I taking civvies, like civilian clothing, or am I taking this and that? And no one would help. Sounds odd, like how do you pack your bag? But how do you pack your bag for war? What clothes do you take? How long are you going to be there? It's not like living in the field in the UK where you take 3 sets of clothing and enough to sort of like keep you going for a week or two. This is a 4.5 month deployment. But no one told me that actually we're going to a nice comfortable air station in Basra. They've got washing facilities. It's all good. You don't need to take tons and tons of stuff. No one gave that coaching. No one gave that comfort to someone that clearly was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And that's it. So I made sure that I learnt that lesson and took that forward into my, I was a corporal towards the latter half of my career, and I made sure I took that forward into my leadership style, and not autocratic, not horrible, but I did want to see everyone do well as best I could, and coach them through it.
Okay. So let's dig into the regiment, Tom, as you said. Cool. So this new Tom, how long was you this new Tom?
From the 9th of June 2003 at 9:15 in the morning, that's when I tested, right the way up to the 1st of July 2023.
2023.
Yeah. So that was day one of my 3-day experience at Sabre Warrior in America, and that's where I started to actually, I'd left the military a few years before that, 2017, but I was still carrying this persona and this identity of Regiment Gunner Tom. And as much as I was trying to adjust into civvy life, I was still carrying, all of these emblems and stories and badges and, things from my military career. So that period is the military aspect of Tom. I had a distinctly average career as well. I didn't amount to much, and I didn't go on, special forces or, any of that. Like, I was just a RAF Reg gunner. But that's, here's another thing, there's me downplaying my military career. I did enough. I know I did enough, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the mob. There were a few moments where it made me do stuff that I didn't want to do, but had to for work. That was the job. A couple of elements of moral injury in there where I wanted to help people, but we had to carry on with a patrol. And a couple of life events that, we watch death happening around us. So, that a lot happened. 1% of the entire time was awful, but the rest of it was a fairly decent career. And I wouldn't stop anyone from joining the military. It certainly gave me, a bit of presence in a life that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Okay. I mean, just on that then. So you say death happening around you. It's part of the job. What was the situation where that was the case?
Which one? Which one? So one of the areas, or one of the stories that I was stuck on, which I would tell. I was really good at telling the story because it made me feel good. It made me feel like I was important. I felt like other people wanted to hear it. Was the rocket attack that took out three of my friends in one go in 2007. That's bad in itself, But I was only 2 weeks before that sharing a room with one of the guys that died, Matthew Corwell. I got moved from that flight and moved on to a different flight because of a reshuffle of manpower. So if that reshuffle hadn't happened, I'd have been in that room and it would have been full. It literally landed at the foot of my bed, this rocket, where I was sleeping, and Matt was in the bed space next to it. So it was literally like I held on to that until I should be dead, and I'm lucky to be alive. And I was telling all of this story around this event, and as a result, everything after that didn't really matter or care because I was living on borrowed time. And the return home from that tour was particularly tough for everyone. I'm not special. It was tough for everyone. Everyone lived through that experience. But I made it mean something more than it needed to be. So my pain was harder because I should have been in that room as well. But I didn't care about the rest of the fight that was there. I should have been there. So it was my moral injury that I carried. Not that I could have done anything if I was in that bed space anyway, because I'd have been asleep, sleeping off a night patrol, and bang, it would have happened. So a lot of drinking, and a lot of lying, a lot of cheating, and a lot of being a poor husband to Gemma, who I was married to at the time. A lot of excuses, a lot of woe is me, and a lot of going off the rails.
Briefly touched on drinking there. And briefly in the beginning, you said to yourself you were an alcoholic.
I am.
Alcoholic.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a distinction there, or?
Were or am. No. I know that my relationship with alcohol now is really good. I don't drink. I know that I have an addictive personality. I have a problem with seeking out excitement and fun, and that's a character trait of trauma. It's a character trait of having years and years of compression and downtroddenness in your personality through bullying as a childhood, through abandonment, terror, you name it, and just wanted to feel good and chase the high. But could I get away with life in never telling anyone I was an alcoholic or had a problem with drink? Yeah, so I'll just have a water today, please. I'm not drinking. But that's a cover-up. That's a shameful hiding away of the truth, which is I have a problem with drink and seeking fun. So there's no shame here. I have a problem with alcohol, and the reason I don't drink is because I'm an alcoholic.
Fair enough. Bold to own that. So when then, have you always turned to drink when you were younger? When was it in the military or was it before? Or when did you see that change?
So I remember my first alcoholic drink. It was a Bacardi Breezer and lemon, possibly. I can't remember. Or hooch. It was a hooch at my cousin's wedding in the Hilton Hotel just on the A3. Anyway, it doesn't matter where it was, but I remember the first one. And then I remember sneaking sips of my nan's wine as an 11 and a 12-year-old kid. My reasoning, or the story I've put into it now, is it was a magic potion because it always made her laugh and feel good. So childlike thinking into it for, well, if I drink that, I'll get that effect. But the adults around us, no fault to their own. It was just being young adults and middle-aged adults having parties and drinking to excess. It's the British culture. Taught Tom how to drink, and it's drink until you get drunk. So that's what I did pretty much every time. If it was a Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday evening, it wasn't 2 points down the Fox, it was 10, and bed at 1 a.m. on just some random bog standard Wednesday, and then get up on Thursday and you shake off your hangover and you do it again. So it was a habit that went completely under the radar, because in the military it's acceptable to go on a 10-mile run with a hangover and smell of gin.
What is drinking culture like in the military?
I think it's got better. I think there's a hell of a lot more awareness to it. However, it's a release. It's a medicine. It's a medicine that helps people release trauma, and which is why the Vikings made, these concoctions of alcoholic liquid to let them get back into their bodies after battle. And it's hard to really put my finger on it right now because I'm not in it as well. I can only talk from my own experience, and maybe, just maybe, even if I wasn't in the military, I would have had the same drinking habit. It just helped that I went in under the radar because it was rife, it was around us. And one squadron, my first night on one squadron was lads kicking my door in and dragging me out and performing drinking games. Like, let's see what this young lad's got. Let's test his fibre. What's he like drunk? And find out who this character is. I just went with it. I was having a great time, But the other guys didn't like it, and they got a bit of a kick in. But I just enjoyed what was going on. I played these games. Free beer.
Okay. Fair enough.
It has changed. It's got better. I don't think there's as much appetite for seeing half a squadron rolling around drunk and naked and setting light to people as there was back in the early 2000s. Camera phones being what they are, they capture a lot of gory details nowadays, and it's not good PR for the military, so I don't think it happens as much.
Very good.
Yeah. They just behind their phones in at the beginning of the party.
Okay, cool. So, military years. Why did you leave?
I outgrew the military. I was covering up an attempt on my life in 2015, and I blamed everyone but me. I blamed everything but me. It wasn't my actions. It wasn't wasn't how I was acting that was a problem. But I figured that the military was what was causing me to be ill in my mental health. So I left. I pressed the button, the 9 clicks to heaven, PVR, personal voluntary redundancy, which then kicks in a 12-month exit. And I was telling people that I didn't want to be a lifer. I didn't want to be the same old bitter sergeant that was broken-bodied and the divorce under their back, under their arm, and all of this story. But really, I was just running away from the fact that I had outgrown the military, and I just didn't want to be in it. I mean, there's a million ways that I could answer these questions.
Oh, I know.
It's hard to piece this narrative, and I try to keep it, in the same fashion as it has always been in conversations I've had with other people, and one that's digestible as well.
Why digestible? What?
Why? Because before we came on there, we was talking about politicians and all of the dirty things that they're getting up to. Everyone's got skeletons in their cupboard, and it's how much of those skeletons that you want to open up to the world. I'm quite comfortable with a lot of those skeletons. I'm in public. I feel it's I don't know, is empowering the right word, but it's inspirational. But it's also, it gives people permission to talk about it openly, because I am. So there are elements that I am quite comfortable talking to you about here now: drink, drugs, adultery, and that with my past life. There are others that are, I will only talk about that with trusted men, and that's not a slight on you. That's just a term for a Sabre Warrior alumni, someone that's been through the program, someone that's come out the other side, and that can hold that safe container and that space. So someone like Adam, someone like the 9 men that have just been through our first cohort last week. They're initiated men, and there's a way that we do things. So not everyone wants to hear that. Not everyone is comfortable hearing some of the stuff, and a lot of people don't know how to handle that complete honesty. I see it sometimes. I tell them, they're like, oh, it makes people feel uncomfortable. Really, and be completely honest with people. They just don't know how to handle that level of honesty. Because there'll be a resistance to them being as honest, because they fear that it's going to get weaponized against them. There's going to be some form of gossip that's going to go around about them, etc., and they're going to look bad, and they're going to be ostracized and put out of the tribe, and that's their fear, which is just and it's valid, because there are bad people out there and they do gossip, and you've only got to watch EastEnders to see that people love drama.
Yeah.
It's Sabre Warrior. Whilst I went into it with, I wasn't ill when I went into it, because that period of my life had passed. I still had some character traits of my traumatic life that I was carrying, which I didn't know. I didn't know that at the time. But Sabre Warrior certainly saved my life. Because of what could have come in the future if I slipped back into old ways, back into drinking and made poor choices. And then you've got the loss of job, and all. It's just this, we call it the drift. Choice, bad choice, more bad choices, something happens horribly, and then it ends in suicide, or a tragic, traumatic death that's unexplained, car crash. And they probably chose to drive at that roundabout 120 miles an hour and take that route out. And that's what we counteract it, the drift, awareness. around these poor life choices that keep people going off in the wrong direction.
So, you said when you were in the military, 2015, you said you tried taking your own life.
It was I'm standing on the football pitch at this Royal Marines barracks. I was on an all arms commando course. I needed another badge for a bit more recognition. I needed another bit of recognition. I needed another little thing to make me look and feel good. And I stood there getting inspected by some sprog corporal. He'd probably not done anything with his career, but he was telling me that he was having a go at me because I didn't have a whistle. It was on a lanyard piece of string attached to the inside of my pocket. Oh, mate, I've been in 12 years, 13 years. I've never used a whistle in the field. Why are you giving me so much grief about this? And I back-chatted him. I said, in actual fact, I'm out. I'm withdrawing from this course. I'm packing up my stuff and I'm going. And he just looked at me like, why? Mate, you're in the top third of this entire program. Just keep going. I said, I don't need this. I don't actually want to be here. I had a really big question about who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I here? Why is this young pup challenging me on my kit when I know I can operate in the field for months on end? I don't need this. So I just packed up my stuff and exited the camp. And this, who am I? Why am I here? This is all your fault. This negative chat just grew louder and louder. And then it went, fuck it. And whilst I was driving my car, I put my foot to the floor and aimed at a roundabout and hit the rumble strip. And then thought, this is a terrible idea, and then slammed on the brakes. But it was like, from that inspection of my Bergen to me in that car driving at a roundabout, probably about 25 minutes. And before that, I was fine. I wasn't fine because there had been all of these events, these things that had led to that one buckaroo moment, that tipping over the edge. And those events had been happening since 4 years old, 5 years old. One after another, after another, after another. I'm broken, no one likes me, why am I here? All of these self-limiting beliefs, broken, defective, helpless, alone, all of these things just churning over, and it just snapped like that. So what I say is like a 25-minute period of like, oh, I'm really bad. Actually, it's a build-up of life happening to me, at me. Everyone else's fault, not mine. Not taking responsibility for my own health, mental health, life, actions.
Wow.
And so that car, that was the method. But there's always been this underlying feeling, and I recognise it now, and I can sit with this. I can be with this sensation and not feel like we're talking about some really heavy stuff here, and I've got no outward like emotion on it. It doesn't mean I'm cold, and it doesn't mean I'm heartless. It just means I'm comfortable with it now. I'm okay with it. I've put it all to bed, and I've been with it quite a lot. Gone off trail a little bit. The more that we can be with this stuff, and it takes time, it takes work, it takes a lot of practice. The more we can be with it openly, the healthier we are, the fitter we are. And it's like call it the meter reading. You know, if you're not comfortable talking about a specific subject about your past, that's quite low, all right. But if I could sit here and look you in the eye and say that happened, I would say I'm fairly confident and comfortable talking about that, which means I'm probably in a good space and a good mental framework, maybe. So I have it.
So that car moment, slammed on the brakes. Where was your next step from that car? Was it a whole? Because you said it was obviously it was a build up until that point. But after that car, did you seek help? Did you take time out? What did you do?
Pulled into a lay-by, called my mum, got in touch with my mum and the feminine. Didn't tell her what happened. Didn't say anything. Said, "Hey mum, how you doing? How's your day?" Just a normal Tuesday chat. Like, that's it. Because it was a shameful act, you know. It was something that I was like, no one needs to know that. That didn't happen. I'll cover that up. I'll just hide that behind the back. No, I'll carry that. No one needs to know. Because why do they need to know? Because I'm comfortable, looking good, pretending to be okay, putting on this good looking smile, and just, it's not me being vain or rude, but I needed to look good in order to not look bad. I needed to be fit in order to be not fit for duty. I needed to be a winner and dominant, so not to be a loser and dominated. All right, it's the counter opposite to how I actually was feeling inside, and it's a human condition, you know. It's not just me. It's not just the military. You pick anyone out of the crowd, we're all running rackets, you know. We're all covering something up. Just depends what it is.
True.
But no, in answer to your question, I didn't seek help. Well, maybe I did. Let's look at this from a different angle. I did, because it wasn't long after that I left the military. I went over to America. I sought the counsel and friendship of an old friend, Chris, who he lived in Florida, had his own freeholding, living off grid, etc. And you know, he was talking about this medicine called psilocybin, magic mushrooms to the general public. And you know, you've got PTSD, right? There's nothing wrong with me. I'm all good. And he sent me this PDF, which was titled from the US Air Force medical, whatever it was, but it was a full-on paper, an explanation about the use of psilocybin to treat PTSD. So he said, come over and stay with us for a couple of weeks, and just be. I've recently just left my first wife. There was a lot going on in this period. He said, come and have a break. Come and have a holiday. And he talked to me more about this medicine. He said, look, I think you need to address this because this, and this. I was like, well, okay, let's give it a go. So and I say medicine because it wasn't Tom just trying to get high. It was the first time I'd ever really been open to the idea of talking about anything. So we did it in the right way. We had a ritual fire. We purged. We ate healthy for 3 days beforehand, and you know, I felt great. First time in quite some time where I was actually sober. To be honest with you. So yeah, took a God dose as he explained it. Didn't know what that meant. Had an incredibly great trip, but the the tail end of it, after all of the funky visuals and all of that mind-bending stuff had stopped, there was just this, like, it's like the weight had been lifted off my tongue. There was no resistance to me talking about stuff. So he just asked me a question and I gave him the answer. There was no fear of what was going to come back. And that stuck for a period of time. And I've been quite comfortable in talking about things. Whereas beforehand I was very closed. Because I was worried what other people would think. So I came back from that trip and told my parents that I was leaving the military. I told them everything. And I don't think we've ever really recovered from that conversation. Because I was, their firstborn, went to go and fight for this country and whatever, thing they had held for me, and there's me telling them all of this, darkness. And things felt very different after that. So, still are, to a certain degree.
Okay. So, you touched on earlier, Save a Warrior America. Is that when you went to it? When you were there?
So no, that's when I went to see Chris. That's 2015, and then Save a Warrior. My trip was 2022.
Okay.
Wrong, 2023. Save a Warrior has been running for 12 years in the States, so it's not just it's just a period thing. But and Save a Warrior is there's no medicine, there's no medication, there's no drugs. It's a conversation. It's a conversational domain where the truth is told and vulnerability is shared openly in a group setting. In short, that's all it is. There's no secret there.
No, that's fair enough. So okay, psilocybin, come back, leave the military. Big choice. Right, into the unknown you go. How was the unknown?
Well, I planned this big adventure. If I hadn't have met Kate, so if I met my wife, Kate, the day or 2 days before pressing the button to get out of the military, if I hadn't have met Kate, I was going to backpack around the world and get lost. That was the idea. But I met Kate and I was like, this is a good woman. I need to, I love her. I knew that very early on. So instead of walking to Rome, which is what I was going to do, I cycled. So I planned in the last year where I should have been. It would have been a good idea if I planned for a career. After the military, I planned this adventure to cycle to Rome called Popping Off to See the Pope. And that was that. So that was my hard stop on the military, my full stop. And then it was a break clause into civilian life. And then I went and sold sofas at DFS, New Malden, which I still question why, how. However, it was a job, and it's brought me to this point here. So lessons everywhere. But yeah, that rip out of the military and into the sales role was a hell of a change. Into any civilian role is a hell of a change. The money was a drop. The having to fend for yourself, but having to actually think and worry about bills and rent and all of these normal things to normal people. You are sheltered from that stuff in the military to a certain degree. It's Peter Pan. They're Peter Pans running around as 18-year-old men who've grown up to a certain degree. Men and women. So fell into sales, which is okay because I haven't got any GCSEs or A levels or a university degree, and you don't really need qualifications to be a salesperson. You just need to know the product and then transfer the emotion to help people make a decision. I could do that.
Yeah, fair enough. So how long did you do that for?
DFS was about 3.5 months.
Okay.
And then my car, the same car that I didn't look after it as well as I could. It was more of a camp car, so I never changed the tyres. I don't think I checked the brakes. It was just this car that I just drove around in, but it was beaten, it was battered, and it was falling to pieces. So I was like, I need to go and buy a new car. So Kate and I made a choice to go for a Kia Sportage in infrared, diesel manual, lovely car. And we went to Kia Brentford and sat down with John Raymond, who was the manager for the entire showroom there. 3 hours later, chit-chatting away. We'll buy the car, but we're talking like we are now. And one thing led to another, and he said, well, come and work with me. I was like, I don't want to be a car salesman. I don't know cars, I don't know anything about cars. So I turned him down and went back to DFS and I realised I've made a terrible mistake here. So 2 weeks later, John, you available for a coffee? He goes, come down to the showroom, we'll have a chat. Excuse me. Come down to the showroom, we'll have a chat, and that's it. He taught me car sales, and I really enjoyed that. Not because I'm a slimy used car sales kind of guy, but that vehicle is used for people's lives, and it being part of that choice, which is a big choice. And helping people make the right decision on what car they buy, and I really enjoyed it, and I did quite well at it. Not financially, but I just sold lots of cars. I just enjoyed doing it. Stressful, a high-paced sales job. Drinking culture came back in. Making excuses, staying at work a little bit longer, getting there earlier. Not doing as much exercise as I could, so what was an 85 kilo Tom when I started there has morphed into this 110 kilo giant that's just doing deals and not looking after his his body.
Wow.
So, but that there is a you ask any salesperson that's working a hard job, whatever the product is. They never make time for themselves. It's a very sick category of human. Not because they do sick things, but they don't look after themselves because it's all about getting the deal. It's all about doing the job and earning the wage, because a commission role is hard work.
It is.
Yes.
Okay. So throughout the military, well, I guess you really do look after yourself. Because you do fitness, the diet.
Oh mate, I look good. I was 83 to 85 kilos, fluctuating up to 90 now and then and coming back down. But I could run a 6.5 minute mile for fun. Weight training. There was a half decent six pack now and then, but it was all for show. I was fit, but mentally I was the weakest I've ever been in my life. Whereas now, I'm mentally the strongest I've ever been in my life. Am I as fit as I was back then? No, don't need to be. It's not a requirement of my job right now. I could still go for a 10-mile run. It'd hurt, but I could do it. And if someone wanted to come for a jog with me, I could go for a jog and have a conversation jogging. There's a lot of residual fitness in this body, but yeah, there's no requirement for me to be that physique anymore. So I choose not to.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's heavy.
Yeah.
Okay, so cool. You're about, piling all this weight in sales, not caring for yourself. Where was that point? Where was that turning point?
Well, we moved. I was driving from here, near Port Fareham, to London and back every day to work at Kia in London. And I was still getting to work at 6 a.m. and I was still leaving there at 7 p.m. So there was not a lot of time at home spent with my wife, and certainly not a lot of resting. It's a weekend warrior job, so I'd had maybe 1 or 2 days off during the week, which meant I wasn't having any good time or quality time, but I enjoyed my job and this is what I was going to do. Just refresh me the question, mate. Sorry, I went off on one.
Yeah, so that turning point.
The turning point. Well, I said goodbye to that and I moved to Kia in Portsmouth, which gave me a lot of time back. It was a much more relaxed space, and quieter. So that was good. But there was still this, I don't know why, I don't know what I want to do. I still didn't know what I want to do when I left the military, if you know what I mean. It's still this question. But in terms of the drink piece, it was the 18th of August 2022, where my wife is looking at me in the eye and said, you've got a drink problem. And it was at that point I had the courage to vocalise it out loud. I said, I think I'm an alcoholic. And that was the last time I took a drink. No AA, no, cold turkey, but I just stopped because I've been caught, I've been found, I've been had. But my wife knew it all along. She's lived with me. She knew all of the stuff that I was doing. Secret drinking, drink driving, and disappearing for 3 days camping in the woods and taking 3 bottles of whiskey with me. It's a lot of whiskey. So I had a good habit. And I was a feeder as well. I would be the one that would get people drunk to mask my own drunkenness, because I wanted to get obliterated drunk. And I couldn't do that if everyone was sober. So, and that was August 2022. The last real gig I went out to, last knees up, was Guns N' Roses at Twickenham. It was a good party with my mate Simon. And his kids and that, so that was a good gig.
So 2022 happens, 2023 Save Warrior happens.
Yeah.
And then everything sort of spiralled or
Upwards.
Spiraled upwards, I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. So there was this, if you think of in the anonymous, in the rooms that end with anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics, Gamble Anonymous, there is this term which is called bottoming out, which basically means you've hit rock bottom. Right? It doesn't get much worse than this, or it does, but it never gets better because I'm no longer alive. So my bottoming out really wasn't as dramatic or as awful as some others. I just realised that if I carried on down this route, I was going to lose everything again, and then that would have been pretty awful.
So the US variant.
So he's talking about Save a Warrior US, and he's basically holding a webinar to raise awareness in the UK, to do some fundraising for the US. So I saw this, I glanced at it, I looked again and I looked at who was attending, and there was a name I recognised, Richard Pyshawn, who was a flight sergeant of mine when I was on one squadron in the early days, and I looked up to this man, and he's a really good guy. I thought, why is he going to a suicide prevention webinar? Why is he there? Is he all right? And I was worried about him, so I turned up to sort of like be there with him, completely in denial of the fact that I was in a bag of shit myself, and my life has been chaotic at best in areas, not always, but elements of my life were dysfunctional and chaotic and unmanageable. So I turned up for him, like, not me, I'm fine. And signed up to this webinar, and I'm there, and I read more about Sabre Warrior in the US. I read more about Adam Gornell, because he was a hypnotherapist and life coach. And I said, mate, I'd love to help. I work in digital marketing. I've got this up and coming concept that I'm producing. Can I help publicise your webinar free of charge? I went, yeah, of course you can. Like, crack on and do what you can. And I got some bums on the seats, and people turned up, and I was there as well, and it was great. But after that, he goes, Tom, we need to talk more, because I've got this is my business. Would you mind doing some marketing for me? So, winner, like, there it is. Yes, I'd love to. So Adam and I have been paired from that day, helping his private company, the Returning Warrior, which is no more, because he's down tools and concentrating everything on Sabre Warrior. As have I, really. I have some good long-standing clients for digital presence, which I'm hoping will be there for many moons to come along, and I'll concentrate a good amount of time on them. But my passion, my work feeds my passion, and that's Sabre Warrior. You know, I don't hold a feel, and I don't crave money. I don't want things, because you can't buy the smile on these guys' faces at the end of that 72 hours. And having experienced that 72-hour container myself, because I've been there and sat to see, I felt I am that transformation. I'm not the guy I am now is my true self, who should have been the guy all my life. I've shedded the military. I've shedded all of that trauma. I don't carry all of those stories and all of that body armor, that shield, that weapon, that sword. I don't carry any of that anymore. I'm not weighed down by it. I am me for the first time in my life. I've grown up. Like, Peter Pan is no longer, to put something funny on it, but it's a very interesting space I find myself in now, personally, because I'm happy. Like, I'm absolutely happy. There are areas where I want to do better, which is okay, and there are areas where it's going to be incredibly difficult to go back and repair. But only go back and make apologies if it's safe to do so. That's one teaching of the anonymous recovery spaces. So, you know.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so that's current day.
That's now.
Yeah, that's now. So, do you plan ahead, and do you plan with Sabre Warrior?
One of my survival traits in life is planning. I'm really good at planning. I'm the best. I will sit there and role play for hours on end, different outcomes, things I need at that time. Like the 72-hour experience, because I'd already been through it. I was like, right, I remember everything about mine, which was the best part of a year and a half ago. So I was like, well, I need to make my experience brilliant. I need to replicate that. So right the way down to the colour of the tape that we would use to lock blokes' mobile phones away. Like, right, we're getting the same tape, we're getting exactly the same chairs, we're getting the same clipboards, we're getting the same make of tissue. I planned everything, and that's a dissociated behaviour in itself, because I could quite easily numb and get into the planning and lose myself in that thing there. So I have to be wary of that. In terms of Sabre Warrior planning, yeah, lots. Just whilst you were setting up this here, Adam and I were having we chat almost all day, most days, just hashing out ideas on what's happened. If there are any good ones, we grab them out and we flesh them out in a digital whiteboard, and we build them into the business plan. We've got some exciting stuff coming. It's too early to let the cat out of that bag. We've got some really exciting stuff. I mean, cohort 2, which will be X month next year, early next year, we've already got 6 men that have submitted their applications to turn up. 6, like ready to go in, and I know that that's off of the year and a half of hard work promoting it on LinkedIn, bearing all, telling stories, transferring my own experience through it, because I can't talk about other people's because it's obviously very personal. So I had bared all on that, but I do it gladly, and I plan everything about Sabre Warrior to the absolute best of my ability, because it deserves the best of me, at the expense of some of the aliveness that I share with my wife and time off. Like this evening when I finish at 8 o'clock, I know that I'll be sat there on a laptop, X, Y, Z, putting these things into place for a meeting tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday next week, etc. And then I'm always thinking about February, March, like January next year, the year after. I'm always planning, which is hard work, especially at 3 a.m. when you're staring at the ceiling and you're wide awake and your brain's still working. So one way that I get around that is folding socks.
Folding socks.
Folding socks, meditation, breath work, not so much recently, but cold water exposure. We've got a fantastic partner that's doing a great amount of work for us at Sabre Warrior. It's VTV, Dan and Karen. They're brilliant people, and you know they've taught me a lot about cold water exposure and the health benefits and why we should do it. But yeah, and a lot of the forward plans for SOAR are growing upon the success of 12 years of iteration from the US. So I want to do them justice. I want to do proud by the guy that invented this thing called Jake Clark. You know, that's all it is really. And you know, they've got a success rate of 99.7. So everyone that goes into the program has identified that areas of their life is unmanageable, and suicide is a word in their vocabulary at that point. Only 8 people out of 2,600 and probably 80 people now have gone on to complete that plan. That 0.03 is unacceptable for me. I want 100% success rate for Sabre Warrior in the UK. That's what I want. I'm not naive enough to think that that's going to happen, because once they leave Sabre Warrior and they're out in the big bad world, their healing is their responsibility. That's a fact. So anything can happen in this game of life, because life keeps happening. But what I want more than anything is that 100% strike rate for the entire history of Sabre Warrior UK. I'm confident that we can deliver as close to that as possible.
I believe you can.
Thank you.
Nice. Well, no, cool. Well, yeah, Tom, thank you for sharing.
Pleasure.
And it's been nice. It's been an honour to hear your story. And thank you for sharing with me. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what is the future for Save a Warrior UK.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you. I'll catch you soon.
Cheers, Alec. I'll speak to you soon, mate.
In part 2, we go out into the street before the interview and we ask questions, or a question, about some of the issues that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to get your views. So feel free to stop here at any time. You can wait until the end.
Okay.
Entirely up to you. So yeah, we'll just dive straight in.
I've no idea what's about to happen, but let's hit play. Alright, let's kind of...
Do you think there's enough support given to the UK veterans?
So UK veterans, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think we treat them appallingly when they come home. A lot of them end up on the street and having problems, and yeah, no, I think it's appalling.
What kind of support do you think should be given, in your opinion?
Well, I think there should be a reintroduction into society. I mean, they move from a very regimented, supported environment where their whole sense of being is supported by a regime and a daily routine, and all of a sudden they're thrown into society to act like normal people.
Does the UK give enough support to UK veterans?
I kind of agree with him, and I absolutely disagree with him at the same time.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay, so there is support for the veteran in terms of enhanced learning credits, an entire year, a whole year to get qualified and really figure out what you want to do. That's enough, you know. Where I don't agree with him is like, well, my life is my responsibility. My healing is my responsibility. My education is my responsibility. So taking that principle and applying it to every veteran getting out in the military, it's up to them to live their life. It's not up to the establishment to do it for them.
Interesting take.
There you go. Yeah. Someone have it. Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't think we do.
Why so?
Just because most of the time, like,
Same question.
like sometimes you, like, in my area, there's like some like veterans that are like homeless, and then the government doesn't really give that much support to them, and like there's cutting and stuff, and usually veterans are like more older people, and like you have the whole winter cut, like winter fuel cuts for them, and like all of that stuff. So I don't think they provide that much for.
Interesting. And this is to you and I guess all of you. What support could they give to veterans when they come home from war?
I think housing, and like getting like reintegrating them into society, because they've had like a very regimented life their whole in the military, and then they come back and they're a free person, and I don't think they're used to that much freedom. So I feel like just maybe like social clubs for them to come around, and like maybe some mental health like facilities for them, because sometimes they come back with like mental health issues because they've been in war and stuff. So that's how I think.
Does the UK give enough support to our veterans?
Of course. Love that Chuck answering that question. The homelessness piece is an area that could be addressed, and you know, and I say this because quite recently I've helped our guy get off the streets who'd been basically sofa surfing and living in a hotel, and it's sad because it didn't happen overnight. It's something that happened, another decline and another decline and another decline, and all of a sudden, like, he's lost his job, he's numbing on alcohol, and his choices, right, got him to where he is. So once again, it's not the military or the MOD or the government's fault. He's made choices in the same way that I did in terms of my battle with an addiction. So personal choice. It would be great if there was a proper catch, like to identify through the council, right, okay, ex-military, homeless is on the horizon, there are elements of unmanageable life in this individual, let's help them a little bit better than the resources help. You can't just pop them into houses if there ain't any houses. Plus, if they've got all of these addiction problems and all of this unrest in their life, you just put in lots of people with lots of problems in one room or one building, becomes a chaotic space. Boiler pot.
Okay.
Probably not.
Do you want to expand?
I think the veterans are probably a forgotten race in this country. There's a lot of people say they get help, but there's a lot of veterans that are homeless and down and out. And I believe that they should get priority over a lot of things.
Have enough support to our veterans?
I don't think so. I think more could be done, definitely.
What would you do as support?
Just make sure they had access to housing, jobs, or any other support that they needed.
Is there enough support given to war veterans in the UK?
No,
Why?
because there's not. I mean, look what they've done. They served for our country. They've sort of like given their life. Some of them never ever come back because they get killed. So I don't think they do give enough help to veterans of this country.
Do you know what could they do in your view to give more support?
Well, I mean, to give them sort of like houses and sort of like things like that, because they do deserve it. I mean, not being funny, how many people can you say will serve this country and actually sort of like not get anything out of it? Yeah. So they could literally give them more support in the long run. I totally agree with giving them more long support for veterans, houses, maybe a little bit more support with them health and all things like that. So yeah, I do agree with that.
Do you think there's enough support given to
So, letting something out of the bag here, a little cat out of the bag. I said earlier on that I wouldn't, but no. Give a man a fish and teach a man a fish. You heard of that?
Yeah.
All right. So, here's house, go live it. That's not great. Okay, they're still going to make those poor choices. If you give someone the ability to earn their own wage and have that purpose themselves, they'll value the thing that they get out of it more. So, one of the additional arms to Save a Warrior is going to be a co-working space. So, and it will be for police, fire service, military, generally uniformed services in the UK that've got a side hustle, that are struggling to make ends meet, or they're in this service because they've been in it and they're stuck in this job and they're waiting to get on their big break. So we're going to offer them a co-working space for next to nothing, in a public arena with access to all of the things that you would expect out of a co-working space under the umbrella of Save a Warrior, and the fee or subscription that they'll pay for that goes into funding Save a Warrior. So that's a thing that's in the pipeline very soon. So in answer to this kind of question here, or answer here, it's like the establishment is not going to do it for us, because if it was gonna, they would have done. So if we're going to make it that people can get up and go and do it themselves and it's accessible. They're still working off the kitchen table.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But
Fair enough.
there you go.
It's alright. Interesting.
veterans?
No,
Why?
because people don't care anymore, that's why.
You understand?
Society is completely to the era I was born in, which was the 40s, right? I know people think, oh, you're an old woman or that, you don't know, but the thing is, people were different then. Now people won't help one another anymore, like we used to all share things. My nan used to leave the key behind the door and all that sort of thing, but now the veterans should come first. My mother and father were in the Navy, both of them. Yeah. And my father was in the Battle of the Atlantic. And when I think in this city, I wasn't born here, thank God, but I ended up here, it's a shithole, I'm sorry. I hope I'm not allowed to say that.
That's all right, yeah.
But it's just that nobody cares. The same as mental health. People just don't care.
Let's talk.
So, any thoughts on that the last woman there?
People don't care. That's why. That's what strikes me out of this lady's answer there. It definitely feels like that, being cut from this cloth. You know, I walk down Fareham High Street, and there's no representation of the uniformed services. You walk down any high street or shopping mall in the US, like, it's all flag America, freedom, and the Screaming Eagle with here's 25% off because you served, etc. Thank you for your service. I know they're a different type of human. They're very patriotic. We're not. We're quite reserved. You know, we're English. We don't do that sort of thing. But it has slipped over the decades. You know, post World War II, it slipped and it slipped and it slipped to where it is now. We can focus on it's horrible, or we can do something about it. So it's my intention to do something about it, which is why we're going to launch the co-working space. And if it works here, it will work in any shopping centre in the UK. Build up, replicate, and replace, and put it elsewhere, and give the veteran, give the retired police officer, give that ex-fireman, firewoman, the ability to go and launch their own business and look after themselves, and in doing that, maybe they'll look at Sabre Warrior with a little bit more in curiosity and think, maybe that's for me. And through that, sitting down with us and doing the work on their business, they can then do the work on themselves, will be happy, healthy, and alive moving forward. And maybe guys and girls that come through Sabre Warrior that don't want to be thin men anymore, or working in some horrible office job, can do it for themselves and use Sabre Warrior co-working space to do that. Okay. But that's very good. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get there. But that's the dream, and that's the idea. And it's with a lot of help and a lot of good conversation going on right now. Just this day, earlier on before I met you, it's happening.
Wow. So, okay, any closing thoughts then?
Our healing in our life and our employment is our responsibility. That's a big one. You know, if we put those things in the hands of others, we're basically relinquishing control of our own lives. And that is the big key takeaway from Sabre Warrior. Fact, you know, my healing is my responsibility. So I'm not poo-pooing what these fine men and women are saying, because they're right, but I think that's the culture answering for them there, because that's what they're expected to say, maybe. But it's up to every single one of those people there to look after their own lives. You can't rely on the government to do it. You can't rely on the MOD to do it, because they're just not going to do it. So it's about facilitating the positive change.
Well, thank you again for sharing. And thank you for answering all the questions and reacting. And again, I look forward to seeing what happens with Sabre Warrior.
We'll be here in 1,000 years' time.
Nice.
Or we've answered the question and there is none. There's no need. That'd be not supposed to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right.
Well, thanks, Tom.
Thank you. All right, looking forward to it. Cool.